Are you considering going back to grad school to be a therapist? Here are 5 things that I wish I had known before embarking on this journey. So let's begin. The first thing is the cost. The cost. I feel like a lot of therapists don't like talking about money, but here we go because it definitely needs to be talked about. So the first part is going to school. For me, it was master's, so that's what I'm going to be talking about. And the second part is your pre-licensed period. So let's talk about school. So obviously there's tuition, but I specifically want to talk about working while in graduate school. So I went in knowing that I wanted to still work because somebody's got to be making that money to pay for that school. So I only applied to programs that allowed me to work full time and take classes on the weekends, the evenings, or async. And so I did that. I joined a 3-year program, and to my surprise, after year 1, I would say 50 to 75% of my cohort just stopped working because it was just so much to handle. Schoolwork, money-making work, personal life, it's just so much to handle all at once. And I don't think I really understood the logistics of figuring it all out. Yes, let me add something to this. Depending on your program, you're also going to start practicum. Well, not depending on your program. All programs have practicum, but depending on your program, you're gonna have it at different times. Practicum is basically just like an internship, and most of the time it's during work hours, and there are some sites that also do in the evenings and on the weekends. But if you do that route, it's just a lot of time. You're just not gonna have any free time. So if you're in my program, your week is gonna look like this. You have 8 to 9 a.m. to 5, 6, 7, 8 p.m. work. And then right after that, you're gonna go to your practicum site, and sometimes they're in person and sometimes they're remote. You're gonna do that after hours, and then do that Monday to Friday. And then on the weekends, you would go to school. And probably also have to go back to your practicum site because there's a certain number of hours that you need to meet before you graduate, and that means you basically have to do practicum 20 hours a week. So that's 40 hours of your full-time job. If you only work 40, maybe you work 50 or 60, and then 20 hours of practicum and schoolwork and classwork. So that's a lot. So just figuring out the logistics of it was harder than I had imagined, just because a lot of the things kind of overlap. If you want to be working full time while you go to school, you definitely need to figure out which programs work and how they do practicum, and just plan ahead. So that's school. The second part is your pre-license period. And in California, it takes 2 to 6 years. You can't go above 6 years. You have to meet it under 6 years. And 2 years, people typically don't recommend because you're working 40 hours plus, I think, if you want to meet all of your hours in 2 years. Yeah, I've heard that can be really rough. So most people take a little bit longer to complete their hours. So if we combine school and pre-licensure, the maximum period that you're gonna not be paid entry-level therapist is 9 years. 9 years until you're gonna be able to make entry-level licensed therapist money. That's the maximum. For me, it's looking more 7 years, but that's 7 years. So I would highly recommend getting out the Excel sheet, budgeting your life away, because it is not just going to school. You really have to plan ahead. Secondly, what you're interested in is probably going to change. So I went into grad school thinking I wanted to work with a very specific population, and I was open about the types of therapy, but I definitely want to work with a specific client. But that all changed because of everything that I learned in grad school. And I think that's really common for students to change what their specialty is going to be. And it's kind of weird because when you're applying to school, you sometimes have to mention who your target clientele is, but chances are that's probably going to change. So, be open-minded about all the things you're learning in grad school, and yeah, you're gonna figure out what you're most interested in working with. And related to your specialty is grad school is not going to be enough education to be a really good therapist. So it's actually really common to do trainings, workshops, and go to conventions pretty often, because you just kind of gotta be honing in on your therapy skills and learning about different techniques and seeing other people do it. And yeah, if you really want to be a good therapist, you gotta constantly be learning. And it's pretty common in my classes that a professor will say, this is just the basics, like you need to take ABC training if you actually want to be able to do this type of therapy with clients. So I would say graduate school is like mostly just like an entry into all the different theories. And if you really want to be good at something, you have to like keep going to trainings and, you know, signing up for things like that. The fourth thing I was kind of surprised by was just like the emotional toll of school. So I didn't realize that like the content, the schoolwork, the homework, the topics weren't that difficult, I would say, compared to my undergrad experience, but the emotional aspect of it was definitely hard. And I'm not talking about like the stresses, putting that all aside, it's just like the emotional work that I did with other classmates. So in my program, we didn't do like roles. So whenever we were like client therapists, there wasn't like a role I was playing. If I was a client, I was going in as myself, bringing in my small T trauma, bringing in my own experiences from school, just like bringing all of that in. And the therapist as a student, you know, they're just learning, but this is all real stuff. So that can be really exhausting. On top of that, we also had like group therapy. So we would be clients with the rest of the classroom, and there'd be like a student therapist and different variations of that. But that was dramatic. That was dramatic and terrifying. And also, one thing to note, if you're a minority in any kind of way, don't expect therapy school to be like this perfect world. Just because we talk about oppression and all the isms doesn't mean it's not present in the classroom, it's not present in the institution, it's all still there. So I would say, at least in my program, we talk about all of these things, but it's still there and you still experience it. And that's exhausting. So take care of yourself. And that goes to part 5. Something that was surprising to me is how valuable learning what self-care looked like for me was. From what I get from like social media and stuff, self-care is like a checklist of things that you can do. Like take a bath, check. Read a book, check. Journal, check. You know, there's like a list of like self-care routines that you can do. But the real thing, let me tell you, is listening to your body and figuring out what needs you have for that day. So sometimes that may be watching TV, like that may be what's actually good for you to disassociate from all the things that were going on in your day. And sometimes that might not be what your body actually needs. Maybe it needs to take a bath, but maybe it needs to drink tea. I don't know, like there's so many different things and variations of self-care, and it's really gonna depend on you, on that day, in that specific time. I think I learned a lot of different self-care activities that I had never heard of, such as vocal toning. Vocal toning is so great. I love it. You basically just like hum. I don't know, you can look it up. There's gonna be a better description out there, but yeah, I think I also learned in my program how important it is to listen to my body to take better care of it. And nothing I'm going to read, nothing I'm going to consume is going to tell me what my body needs today. And if I listen to what my body needs, it's going to help me recover and just feel better the next day. And that's something that's so valuable that I learned. And you know, I think I knew these things like in my head, like I knew all these things, but like to really deeply know and to then act on that is something really different. Yeah, so those were my 5 things that I wish I knew before going to grad school. I hope this was helpful. And if you are going to grad school, congratulations, congratulations. It's gonna be amazing. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be whatever it's gonna be for you. And I wish you all the best of luck. If you like this video, consider subscribing.